Thank you, Dan, for your introduction. Well, thank you for your coming to this research seminar. I will begin with my presentation for the job. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to this research seminar. I'm very pleased and humbled to accept this great chance to make this research, which based on my recent experience and observation about frontiers of cartography, and especially in the area of big data. As a pretty much a new faces to the Oregon State faculty member, I will give a brief introduction of who I am. Except 2 years gap in the industry, geospatial industry, I was in the academia of geoscience for almost 15 years. So my research is based on the geospatial science and technology, especially the cartography and the geovisualization. But I'm also very interested in WebGIS spatial database, VGI, geospatial big data technologies, and some of the application areas related to governmental innovation, environmental issues, and currently I'm a postdoc at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. My recent research works mainly focusing how to use geospatial data to understand public satisfaction level of public policies in terms of like a two-child policy in China, social welfare, climate change, as well as who is money donors in China. So after a brief introduction of who I am, I want to introduce some of my observation of the emergency phase of cartography. And after I pose this question, I will give my understanding about the new cartography frontiers, especially based on my own research and some discussions and the implications in this profession and geographic and cartography education. After this, I will give a conclusion, and based on some exploration of this geographic program at Oregon State University, I will foresee my future research. So, along with the recent development in internet, computer science, and communication study, I noticed there are two trends about debate about cartography. One trend mentioned that the cartography is dead, especially due to the booming of or the rise of GIS scientists and GIS science. And also, there's another debate. They mentioned that there is a new phase of cartography. I noticed that there are a bunch of buzzwords like new cartography, crowdsourced cartography, or cartography 2.0, or critical cartography. So I think this debate continues to be more heated in the era of big data. Especially some scholars argue that there is actually a fourth paradigm of doing science. It's more data intensively and statistical exploration and data mining related. And also there are green fund by the government, funding from the government, which goes to some technologies related to big data, such as machine learning, cloud computing, and crowdsourcing. And also I noticed that they support the program called EarthCube, which is a system that can allows geoscientists to access and analyze geospatial data. During last year's AAG, I called with other scholars, organized a special session on emerging topics in data-driven geography, which we have get 8 excellent papers ranging from the series, methodologies, and applications related to big data and the intersection with cartography. So based on all this experience and my practice, I would like to discuss the frontiers of geography framed under Bo Zhao's recent paper on the new cartography. He mentioned that there are 4 aspects about the new cartography, which are virtual globe, citizen engagement, coordinates, and interactive maps. So for the first dimension is the virtual globe. Virtual globe actually emphasizes a plan for to manage and integrate the geospatial data. So one of the urgent versions, I think you might all know, is Google Earth. And also for Israel, they released a product called Earth Globe. And in Harvard, the Center for Geographic Analysis, they also have another version called World Map. And there are different fundings from different countries. As we know, in the United States, we have EarthCube, and in Euro Union, we have environmental research infrastructure, and in China, we have a TND tool. And in UIUC, there is a team led by Shaowen Wang who developed a planned prototype for virtual globe, which is called Cyber GIS. As you can see here, this is the hardware infrastructure for virtual globe. It's named as a Resourcing Open Geospatial Education Research, which is actually named after Richard Tomlinson. So to make a virtual globe, one of the easiest way is not to use a very high performance computing infrastructure. In my PhD, during my work on my dissertation, I have built up a cluster based on this open source chips. So it has the same functions, especially in collecting data as the Roger from the UIUC. So basically, this is the data I got from this cluster. During the 2 gap years, I have lead a team in the industry to work on to develop different softwares which can make up a virtual globe, such as some like the GeoCloud, which is the web map engine to establish the different heterogeneous geospatial data and then making maps, web maps. And also I have do a lot of work to develop a spatial database for mobile devices. And also I have intensely involved in the TND2 project, which is equivalent to the United States EarthCube to make those applications. And also I have make those web applications both integrated both 2D and 3D interface and applications. The second dimension of new frontiers is the citizen engagement. The citizen engagement, as we know, before only the cartographers are very strictly trained to making maps. But currently, even average person can make maps, right? So the VGI is actually a geographical adoption of the citizen engagement to making maps by individuals at a collective level. Here is an example of the well-known VGI-based web mapping called OpenStreetMap. As you can see, on the right hand is the compass area of Oregon State. On the left hand is actually all the map authors who has devoted to make these maps. So this is a very good prototype of VGI. And also those location-based social media can be regarded as VGI because they are devoting their information and post and also with the georeference. So I noticed that there are a lot of applications based on VGIs for physical geographic studies, like understanding the spatial and temporal dimensions of forest farms and flood hazard. And also I noted that the researchers use social media data, especially this volunteer devoted social media data to understand the climate change, how people's reaction to the climate change. For me, I use VGI intensively. I use that to measure where is the LGBT communities in the urban area, and that will help the government to provide public services. And also I use VGI data to understand the political scandals, what's the opinion leaders and what's their special variations of this debate about this political scandal. Also, I make a map of those street beggars to help their parents and the government shelters to found them and to provide them services and help. The third dimension of frontier of photography is the coordinates. So the coordinates here, it's argued that more and more hardwares can be georeferenced to the virtual planet and connected. So it's pretty similar to the concept of Internet of Things and the ubiquitous of computing. So to give an idea of what is the Internet of Things, the best idea is this so-called open source hardware, right? And open source hardware is a movement that provide easily accessed blueprint and softwares to make up to DIY hardware, and also these plugins are very easily approached from internet, like Amazon or eBay. For example, I noticed that some of the environmental geographers that use those open source hardware to censoring temperature and snow depths, and made up this GPS plugin, the ocean drifters, to collect data about oceans. And also there are research on how to make up the balloons carrier with air quality sensors to collect data about the air pollution. But for me, as a new father, I try to make up a baby monitor with this hardware. Like, as you can see, here is Azure Gradient. You can see here is a machine, and here is a monitor. And also, I add a temperature and a sound plugin, which when the baby make a noise in the night, I can say, okay, the baby is wake up, I can hear the baby. Rather than standing with then it's such a release for me and my wife. Another thing I want to put into the audience radar screen is I recently got internal funding from Harvard Center for Geographic Analysis. It supported me to collect the online resources, especially those resources about China, to enrich their big social media platform. As you can see, I built up this environment with Hadoop and using MongoDB as a database and the GeoServer to serve all the maps, and using R and Python to do the analysis. The fourth dimension of frontier is the interactive maps. The interactive maps is focused on the new ways of visualizing and analysis the geospatial data. One of the early method exploration I have done is when I was still in University of Florida. I tried to mark out where is the influence areas of the global swine flu, and you can see using a gradient circle, we can basically see where is the most influenced areas of the swine flu, where is not. And also, I noticed that there is a lot of new ways of visualizing and telling with this big data. Look, for example, use the timeline and also use the so-called wind map. So I want to mention that all these softwares are open source, which means we can easily adopt it to your own research. For example, if you're working on some subject related to climate change or physical geography, we can easily use these plugins to your own research. Another interesting interactive maps format is the map stories. Map stories are not only to visualize or analysis geospatial data, but it's all about how to tell a story about a research topic or phenomenon. Another interesting I want to keep in your radar screen is there was a recent paper written by Phillips about the storytelling in earth science. He actually proposed 8 basic plots in earth science, which is actually how the earth evolved. And all these 8 plots can be used to telling the story and for the future researches in environmental studies or other related physical geographic studies. After introduce the frontiers of cartography, I want to discuss some of the things that I think is warrant our future investigation. Firstly, I want to point out that all the maps or geospatial systems are telling white lines, right? Think about how we generalize data, how we simplify the resembling data. When we want to express something precisely, we have to remove some of the land features, right? So actually, think about the logic. This is actually a way to telling lies. Rather than this unintentionally white lines, I noticed that there are also some intentional lies. One of the research I have done during my dissertation is detecting location spoofings based on Bayes' time geographic approach. Basically, it proposed a way to identify to detect all the fake locations on social media. For a quick example, if a location is beyond people's accessibility, and I can use time geographic approach to assess the probability of people access this area and to know whether this place has is likely to be here or unlikely to be here. If the place have a less probability, I can identify the place to be a location spoofing. So another thing I want to talk about is mapping. The practice of mapping is also socially constructed, right? So I have co-authored a paper called "Social Media Clean the Air," which is a case study of the air pollution problem in China. Basically, we found that social media is touted by a lot of researchers as a way to is a technology of freedom. It helps the general public to make the government and the private sector to understand what they're thinking and talking about. And also, I noticed that in the landscape of social media, government actually using that to monitor and to monitor those opinion leaders, and also the private sector is actually advertise their product on social media as well. Here is a map both in the physical space and also in a topological space. They're all mapping out the flows between the talks on social media about the air pollution. As you can see from the topological perspective, you can easily identify where is the communities and the topics within this talk, and in the landscape perspective, you can easily identify where is a place has a lot of this conversation going on. So the mapping practice has been dramatically changed in the era of big data, I would say. Think about the traditionally way we're making a map. We're making map with pencils, with on a paper, right? But currently we're making map just like hikings, right? Like I noticed there are a series of books on how to hiking as a mapping, right? Google Maps hacking and Google Maps and Map Google Earth and how to hack these programs. And currently I noticed that a lot of those cartographers, they're not using the traditional pens or papers. They're just sitting before their computers, operating their Map.js or QGIS or open source alternatives to make their maps. Well, I didn't identify myself as a hacker, but I'm really enjoying those hackathons, right? I make maps using those web-based software libraries. For example, this is a map to show you the demographics, how they change based on the percentage of the household. This is a basic cartogram map. And also I noticed that there is a similar map using the same idea to identify the carbon emissions. So if the cartographers are hikers, or the practice of making maps are hikings, which means we need to reconsider or rethink the ethics of making maps. I would recommend the book Hackers, which written by Steve M. Levy. He actually proposed 6 fundamental ethics for making maps in the era of big data or by computers. I think it's very important or crucial when we think about the traditional map ethics and the shifting ethics in the era of big data. In addition to the implication to the professional ethics, I would also want to talk about the implication for cartographic education. Usually, as you know, I was an instructor on cartography. Usually on the first class, most of the instructor will have a session to know each other, to know the instructor and to know the students. But for me, I will take advantage of the crowdsourcing map to understand the students. For example, I will make a template for using Google Map Engine and to ask students to mark their own locational identification and their major and their grades and their research interest and the description of themselves. And then all of a sudden, there is a crowdsourced spatial roster will be built. Basically, based on this spatial roster, will be very helpful for me to memorize names of the student. I know some of the faculty members are very struggling in remembering their names. And also for their students, they will be understand from their hands-on practice how a crowdsourcing map is, and they'll feel such a release. Okay, this course is not that hard. I can handle this course. So that was just a small example. But thinking more broadly, I would say the new frontiers of cartography will help us to think about the curriculum reform related to cartography. Well, should we introduce more courses on map hacking, or sometimes to emphasize on the new professional ethics? Or could we use map story as a way to do the interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary research? And also, we need to balance the online course and the traditional classroom-based instructions, and also the open source software and even open source hardware will be great opportunities for cartographic education as well. So to draw a conclusion, I want to go back to the definition of cartography. Cartography is the study and the practice of making maps. So what is a map? Let's think for a second. A map is a graphic representation to inform and visualize, and also is an analytical tool to analyze and to model, and also is a social construction to impress and please. Based on my presentation, I can see that rather than these three paradigms as an image, as a model, or as a social construction, maps is more like a Wikipedia, right? When making the maps, we're just matching up via heterogeneous medians, heterogeneous geospatial data. And for using the maps, we are kind of linking different subjects with the map storytelling or geo-narratives. Before drawing conclusion to the end, drawing this presentation to the end, I want to show a map, a word cloud map of which made by all the publications from the geographic program of this school at Oregon State University. As you can see here, I think your department is really good at the subjects related to geography, not limited to physical, but also some social, human interactions and the methodology part. For example, there are topics in forest, water, basin, and also I noticed some of the topics in social and sustainability and economics and national securities, and also I noticed some methodology part like mapping, right, and approach. So if I can join in this big geographic program, I think I can devote it to multiple contributions to your school. I will frame my future research under Goodchild's geographic research framework. Goodchild proposed the geographic research framework into three fundamental pillars. The first is the cognitive, second is the computational, third is applied. So from the cognitive perspective, I will focus on the theoretical part of the cartography, like the time geography, data uncertainty, topology, and location spoofing. On the computational perspective, I will focus on how to make web and mobile GIS and spatial database and big data related method. And also, I'm very interested and committed to how to use GIS to shape and to be shaped by social and environment, and to use my expertise in GIS in different applied areas like the climate change, water resource, and forest. Okay, thank you so much for your listening.
Very well done time-wise. So you're ahead of Martin. I know you have a busy schedule. So if are you going to hire him back? If he's interviewing for our cartography jazz position.
Very impressive.
How about that goal?
Very impressive. I wonder, is your laptop hooked up right? Because your spectrum seems not.
Yeah, I think it's the wire. There's something wrong with the wire.
Yeah, if we could get that right in your real talk, it would be good, because you had one slide referring to green and it actually looked yellow.
Yellow.
It's our projection system because I teach in this room.
I think it's
Okay.
the wire.
So all my beautiful slides have been diluted.
You should tell this guy over here.
I just found out now.
This is the first I've heard of it.
Oh, okay. I thought I could live with it, but.
Impressive, yeah. Good talk. Seemed to cover the waterfront, provided an overview of your interests, and you did a good job linking it to their local interests as well. Just practice saying Oregon State University or whatever. Don't mix it up and say Ohio State University.
Anybody else? Chris, you just came back from an interview, so what's your comments?
So I think overall it's very good, and I like the visuals. The slides are very professional, and I like the applied. It's very applied to Oregon. I think for me, there needs to be a hook at the beginning, something to get me excited and draw me in about your like what is it that you do. I know what Michael Goodchild does and what he proposes doing, but I think also like there needs to be and this is something that folks told me, is that there needs to be a narrative throughout, like a continual story throughout, and it needs to build and get people interested at the very beginning with like a hook.
It's sort of the cartographic frontiers thing, so that needs to be strengthened and emphasized further.
Also, I think with a little bit more practice, I noticed that like more than half the times you are talking to your slides instead of the audience. So you needed to, occasionally looking at this, okay, are you using the presenter's view? Yes. Look at that, using your presenter view, so that because this reminds you what's coming next and also what is shown, and also make some comfortable, friendly eye contact with your audience. Well, that's very important because you are talking to people, not talking to the screen.
A very good technique for making sure you do that. Walk over to the screen and point to something on the screen and then look out at us. So you're going to say something about the screen, but you're telling it to us. And if you're in front of your laptop, you're going to be kind of distracted this way. But if you're beside the screen, it kind of brings your attention to what we're looking at.
So I think occasionally look at the screen and
Not just look at the screen, walk over to the screen and point to it. Like there, do it, try it. Just try talking to that. Just try
Like
to.
you are explaining, I think in that regard, all these like TV meteorologists, they are the good example. You know, they are talking to something shown, but also they know they have the audience in front of them. So
They practice that.
Because if, for example, if I showed you as a clip for the local evening news as TV meteorologists, it will look really awkward because you did not look at your audience. You talked to whatever is shown on your graphics. You see?
I also agree with Chris. I feel like it's good at the beginning you introduce yourself and then introduce about cartography as a discipline, but I feel like it's way more better to situate yourself within the big discipline. That is, you view this discipline from both sides, not someone else. And also, I like to think more about the linkage between your expertise and the university's why they really want you to be there. For example, Ohio State, I know they have very strong program in forestry, ecology, and I know that geography have bunch of usage is very powerful too in the discipline of environmental conservation and forestry and this kind of stuff because I use this thing in environment conservation and forestry. So I feel like they need you badly because those forestry guys and ecology guys, they really need something. To do something, they really need you, and you also have a lot to contribute to them. And like I know that their forestry, they do a lot of the forest product trade, international trade between U.S. and China West Coast. And they do need you from that perspective, and you also have a lot to contribute. So my overall point is like, it's good we know you, and we also want to know how you situate yourself. Of the linkage between you and Oregon State University, and the linkage of how you situate yourself within the discipline of cartography, and what cartography is from your eyes, but not from anyone else's eyes.
Thank you.
Sam?
Yeah, the overall, like the flavor that I get from the whole presentation still tilts kind of towards the social, which makes sense because that's your primary background. So if you can emphasize more the cartographic generalizability of the social stuff you've done, and just to give it more of a physical sciences flavor. And you did a great job of that, like in the one slide where you talked about the forest fires and the floods, and a couple other places throughout. And then the cartographic education slide was like great, really strong. Because it was right, it was like in the Venn diagram of you and them, what they're looking for, it was like right in the middle. So, but if you could like generalize more, emphasize the cartography and like de-emphasize some of the social stuff, it might fit their interest better.
For example, I just remove some slight social construction and things like that. I mean, I can just simplify it, but rather than talk too much about it. And also, because the reason I tell these two slides because that's some of my dissertation work and other papers. So it's really.
But so you don't have to remove it. But if, like Chris said, you can fit it into a narrative that's about innovative cartography, so that the headline is cartography, and look, here's how you can use it. Rather than the headline being like a social thing, and here's how I got this.
Yeah, that's
Because so I would imagine like more than half of the people in your audience at Oregon State will be physical geographers and climatologists. So you needed to, like at least for this work, you need to emphasize how the public use the social media to market a coherent public campaign, the pressure. That's the positive side. The pressure the government to make national laws.
there is actually.
Okay.
I'm kind of afraid about talking about because I realize there's a lot of things being related to physical geography or environmental geography, but it's others' work, it's not my work. Doesn't matter.
So why even put those three things at the top? Forest fire, flood hazard, and climate change? Because you give three awesome examples here.
Yeah.
This is about they're not getting hired, you're getting hired.
Yeah.
So I would just.
But they're related to the physical geography.
Yeah, because he's thinking they're the audience, mainly the people interested in the forest fire, flood.
If anything, like tell this as first like the mapping method, and then here's how you use it, rather than what the theme is. Oh, yeah, sorry.
So your first slide where you're showing your experience at the bottom of the icons. Can we go back to that slide really fast? I think, yeah, it's all the way back, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, right there, yeah. So when you were explaining that slide, I noticed that you highlighted the time you were in industry and outside of academia. And one of the things in job talks that I've been taught is that idea of confident humility. So if you're worried about Oregon State being concerned about those 2 years, I want it highlighted. but I would maybe in some way talk about your experience in framework with Oregon State's, because I felt like the way you talked about it, you were like sort of afraid, like it was maybe seen as a negative. I don't know if that's true or not. That came across. So I would find a way to talk about those 2 years briefly connecting to academic research trajectories. 'Cause it came off a little bit as you were maybe a little afraid of how they would see it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, also, probably you can mention something, this is a visual CV.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it really depends on discipline. Some discipline like environmental conservation and business, having industrial experience is a class, definitely a class.
Yeah, so trying to way to bridge it or not bring it up. You know, if it's going to be considered a concern, then just, you don't have to highlight it, just say, you know, this is my experience. And not draw attention to it.
How long is the talk supposed to be?
The talk should be 40 minutes for my talk and
Maximum.
So they said,
no, I think there will be some time for the question session.
Yeah, so you can talk, yeah,
40 minutes.
40 minutes, and then after that,
okay.
so yeah, he has some room to.
Yeah, because your talk was 30 minutes. I think 35 is fine, but don't do anything less than 35. If they told you 40, then
Yeah.
That's it.
don't do more than 40.
You are a little bit ahead of time. That's good.
Yeah, you just don't want to be 10 minutes too.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, one thing you might notice, you showed that interesting word cloud at the end, and I don't know if you noticed this, but the things you commented on were some of the smaller items on their page. They're actually into the environment and forestry.
That's the college. That's the college.
Well, that's right, but you emphasize the things that maybe are not central to them.
Yeah.
You said social, you said economic, and you said maybe modeling and ethics. But look at the big words: water, forest, management, resources. If you could find a hook to that, it might be, if it's not too much of a stretch for you, to at least show that you understand what they're interested in, and then maybe that you might be able to grow towards some of that interest.
That's a good point. Yeah. Because this, yeah, you serve to make the connection.
Okay.
I was thinking if you're looking for a social hook, as you were doing the slide, that I kept waiting for you to point to management because it's so big at the top.
Yeah.
And it's a social hook. And like,
Actually, there's one of their program called Water Resource Management, so there's.
Environmental.
What about how is change used in their department?
Well, I don't actually remember climate change. Yeah.
Well, how about mapping as a tool to help with water resource management? Mapping, cartography is a tool that underpins all of these.
Also, practice, approach. These are the key methodologies.
I think you're going to have trouble if you decide to emphasize the word approach and economic and security.
Yeah.
They're tiny. That's not what
Oh,
they
I
do.
can do something. Yeah. To enlarge it.
No, don't enlarge them. That's not.
Okay.
Well, one suggestion, do you know Howard Forest? Howard Forest, they have a bunch of people doing like photography. They are talking about forest. Maybe you can talk to them, you know, how your skills and forestry.
Did you have, so I've heard that often places aren't hiring you so much for the work you've done, they're hiring you for the work that you will do in the future.
I guess so, yeah.
So I think for me, I need to see a section on future research, like be more specific about it and what you're going to do in the next 5-10 years. And they may ask you. I got that on the phone,
Okay.
in phone interviews. What?
I guarantee you will be asked.
Okay,
Yeah. What, you know, what type of research how you are going to fit in within the program, what type of research you will be doing if they hire you, and also you may mention, you know, some of the funding opportunities that you know of.
I'm just what's your experience? Because I don't know how much I will talk about my future research. That's the reason why I only gave 2 slides.
I would do a couple more. I would spend like 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes on it. And take out good child at all. I mean, this is you.
Okay.
For this slide, take him out.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, mention like 2 or 3 projects.
Yeah, I think that's good, because he has this 10 minutes to fill in. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, you need
Yeah, that's interesting.
Two or three more slides about the future research and how you're going to fit in to condense it. You know? Because you have, based on the previous work, you have showcased your strong technical skills. And this is for your future research, tied to the emphasis of the school program. This is how what you plan to do. Good luck. Thank you all for coming, and let's wish you all the best, and hopefully we will have a new friend to visit in Carmales next year in Oregon.